Ironically, what we made synchronous was actually meant for asynchronous communication.
If you look at a large part of the working, professional population, they aren't on social media.
I feel like we don't actually have a perception anymore of human cues.
Listen to the cues. Listen to the change in tone, the slight change in voice, and you said, "Hey, are you okay?"
Today, adult attention deficient, disorders and syndromes are on the rise as well.
Not just to just make the other person understand something, but first to connect with the other person.
On a macro level, I also feel like that social element is what communication is all about. I mean, I would go so far as to say we are because we communicate.
We've made it a couple of notches above that, okay, you may be a good communicator, but are you a storyteller?
It's the prerogative of the few, right? Like you can't actually.
Yeah. But we all need to be storytellers. What is this incessant need to add to conversations, to start conversations, to say one more thing in that WhatsApp group, to put one more LinkedIn post out there on leadership lessons from God knows who? Why are we communicating so much? And end of the day, are we really communicating? Are we getting our message across? Is anybody listening? Does anybody care? Let's find out. Because I'm really, really tired of muting one group after the other and being left with actually nobody that I really want to hear from. Hi, welcome to Small Talk Work Play Build. I'm Subha Chandrasekaran, Leadership and Career Growth Coach.
And I'm Hasita. I'm a brand consultant and co-founder at Motley Crue.
So we have a lot of pet peeves that could pour into this one, Hasita.
And I think a lot of the prep for this episode was just figuring out what not to say, even for us. Yeah.
But don't you feel it? I'm just bombarded by communication, not even information, just people saying things.
Firstly, I want to be very cognizant of the case in point that we are making right here as well. you know, we have a lot to say and we are saying it. We're not holding back.
Correct. Okay, so let me edit my statement that there is a lot of communication without intent, right? So we'll give ourselves credit for having some intent.
Yes.
Okay,
Topic title.
Yeah. But I think what's kind of on my mind is we've made, firstly, we've made so many forms of communication synchronous. Like the minute I get it, I'm supposed to respond. And the minute you hear it, you should have a view and you should have something to say about it and you should say something back for the whole world to see and hear, go and comment on every post that you come across and make a statement. But ultimately, like whenever I walk into any corporate or when I sit down with leaders, the first thing I hear is communication skills are lacking. People lacking, right? People don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to write emails. They're not being understood. There's just so much of back and forth. So, what are we really doing?
I feel like, ironically, what we made synchronous was actually meant for asynchronous communication. I don't think we were supposed to respond to text messages or emails at the rapidity at which we seem to be doing it. And of course, I mean, a lot of it is platform engineering also, right? Like we have to bear in mind the fact that the platform is incentivizing your mind in some way by being quick and by delivering on the promise of, okay, I'll get back ASAP, so to speak. But at the same time, how much of it is original thought, right? And I feel like for communication to work, for it to have some impact, that original thought aspect is so important. And when we are constantly saying things, where is the time to sit down and think?
Correct. I think there's that, are you preparing for a conversation? Because I think that is lost in this urgency or in this need to be out there, be heard, and not just on social media. Because actually, if you see, end of the day, if you look at a large part of the working, professional population, they aren't on social media.
Yeah.
Right? At least not in public profiles. They're in very limited kind of putting a photo up once in a while, maybe, and a LinkedIn achievement once in a while. A large part of us are not on social media. So a lot of the communication is happening in real life,
Hmm.
and many times failing at that, right? Because you're not preparing for that conversation, whether it is with a family member, or whether it's a new hire, or with a client, or a vendor, or senior management. Each one requires a different approach, and like you said, some time to think, like,
Hmm.
why am I getting into this
Conversation at
conversation,
all.
or
Yeah.
why am I writing this email? What do I want to say, and who am I saying it to?
Mhm. And the other aspect of it is because we spend so much of our time behind a screen, I feel like we don't actually have a perception
Ah,
anymore of human cues, right?
yeah.
And my mom says this very well. She says the timing of the transaction,
Huh.
right? Which is, don't bring up a difficult conversation when you know the other person is not going to be,
Yeah.
and it sounds almost like a blow to my ego, right? Of course I have to say it right now, how can the other person? But the reality is that we are all living such complex lives, and
Yeah.
half the time the only interaction we are having with each other is from behind a phone, which is not telling us anything about the other person's state of mind.
Yeah.
It's not even showing us their facial expressions.
Yeah.
I think there's a very, overused statistic which says 70% of communication is non-verbal.
Correct.
Where is that? Today, my
Correct.
non-verbal is Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And the different themes that I
Yeah.
could use to understand
Correct.
where you are.
And I think there was a time where, when we had only like phone conversations, even as a kid with friends, you learned over time to listen to the cues,
Yes. Yeah.
listen to the change in tone, the slight change in voice, and you said, "Hey, are you okay?"
Mm-hmm.
Or, "Hey, you sound excited." But we've lost the ability to listen to those
Yeah. Yeah.
cues.
And the fact that today adult attention deficient disorders and syndromes are on the rise as well, because
Hmm.
we don't know how to sit and listen to another person
Yeah.
for more than 2-3 minutes. Have you not like 2x speeded your reels these days? You've
Yeah.
done that, right? Because
Yeah.
you just want to quickly get through
Correct.
to
Correct.
the end. I God knows I do it all the time.
So many things. I'm 2x speeding a video,
Yeah.
like or it's playing and I'm reading through the transcript faster than, because
The
I want to
video
get
has,
to the message, or I
yeah,
want to say, like, what do you want to tell me? Tell me fast,
quickly. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So I think a lot of, um, most senior leaders, we say, first, can you learn to listen?
Mm-hmm.
And two, can you please start preparing for conversations? Don't treat it as everything is on the fly,
Mm-hmm.
because you got into this with some intent. Can you
Yeah.
remind yourself of the intent? Like, I want to convince somebody, or I want to influence them for a decision, or I want to give feedback, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
I just want to have an exploratory discussion.
Yeah.
And which means I want to hear their views, which means I have to listen.
And the hard part is when you know, or you know that you've prepared for it, but the other person may or may not. Like
Hmm.
today, I think one of the hardest things to, I don't know, just put yourself through is to say something that may be a question. You've thought about some
Hmm.
alternative, and then the response comes pat, and it's just not,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's not thought through, and it's so irritating because you had put the effort.
Yeah, yeah, you can't control that. And I think the only way you can kind of dig deeper is
Keep
asking
asking.
questions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is this what I'm hearing you say? Or, what do you mean by that? But we just, that's again a waste of time.
Yeah.
Or it's seen as a waste of time. Or maybe it's seen as, if I ask you a question, does it mean that I didn't get it? And hence
Mm-hmm.
I am kind of losing out on my status in that
Yeah.
conversation, that I didn't understand what you said, but I should have,
Yeah, yeah. So
you know.
I'm somehow the idiot in the room.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
I was not quick enough to
correct, correct.
grasp
But I
what you
think
said.
because of that, we're losing out. A lot of conversation was meant to carry a lot of nuance.
And we weren't supposed to feel so performative about it, I
Hmm.
think. Like we were not supposed to feel like a conversation between two people is me performing for your benefit or you performing. It's
Yeah,
more curiosity,
correct,
exploration. Okay, tell me something I didn't know.
correct.
Is where, I mean, that would be the best kind of conversation to have, ideally.
No, I was listening to one of my regulars, right, the Dak Shepard Armchair Expert podcast, and they had um, Charles Duhigg, who's he's, I think, a journalist. He writes for New Yorker, etc. But he's also written a book about supercommunicators. And I think one of the first thing he says is, this is a skill.
Hmm.
communication is a skill, so it's not like you are innately blessed with it. I mean, some are more than others, but it's something you can pick up,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? It's a muscle you can train, which also means that you have to train it. You have to practice
Yeah.
better and better communication, get feedback and improve on it. But the notion of a super communicator, right? Someone who is able to have a conversation, like you said, not just to just make the other person understand something, but first to connect with the other
Hmm.
person,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Super communicators create that connection.
Hmm. Hmm.
And he talks about three different types of conversations.
Hmm.
One which is very practical, like we're talking about how do we do this, what are we going to record next, what's our topic, tuck 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 tuck. Then there's that very emotional
Yeah.
conversation that we may have, where one of us will typically show some vulnerability or
Hmm.
open the
Hmm.
door
Hmm.
for some vulnerability, and in that creates understanding,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
brings us to some common space. And the third one, which is like a social conversation, where I'm just trying to discover, like you
Hmm.
said,
Hmm.
the curiosity. Who are you? What do
Hmm.
you know that maybe interests me? What could I tell you that probably interests you? Who are we in the large
Scheme
scheme
of
of
things,
things,
yeah.
right?
And honestly, this whole podcast is that curiosity,
Yeah,
right? In some
yeah,
ways, to say, okay, I mean, we have a lot of conversations with people who are thriving in the work, but what else? And that's why we introduce the, idea of play, to say,
yeah.
what is that other thing that
Correct,
enriches you and brings you some
correct.
joy? Because on a macro level, I also feel like that social element is what communication is all about. I mean, I would go so far as to say we are, because we communicate.
Hmm.
We are finally social creatures. We thrive in packs, right? And we
Yeah,
always, you leave a room of 100 people by themselves for an hour and you will see the groups forming and the
yeah,
alliances shipping up,
correct.
because that's just who we are evolutionarily. And I think for a long time we made storytelling to be this really big thing that,
Yeah,
you don't know how to tell it unless you've finished it and honed it. But literally, a child is born listening to stories. A lullaby is probably the first story you ever hear in your entire life. So it's really not that difficult to do some of these things. It's just that the constructs today have made it harder.
correct, correct. I mean, today storytelling is like kind of a super skill, right? Above communication.
Yeah, yeah.
We've made it a couple of notches above that. Okay, you may be a good communicator, but are you a
It's the
storyteller?
prerogative of the few, right? Like you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
actually.
But we all need to be storytellers. We
Exactly.
all
More
need
and more.
to more
Yeah.
and more. And so the thing about this practical, emotional, social, what he says is connect at that level, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
the other person is having a practical conversation, listen to understand that, and then you respond to that type of dialogue,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because if I'm being extremely emotional and vulnerable, and you keep responding to me with, and we see that, no, with action items, why don't you try this, why you're
Yeah.
trying to
Oh, it's
solve my
okay. It's not
problem.
such a big deal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And then we kind of, that's where the misunderstandings happen, or
Yeah.
I feel like, okay, this isn't working. And in family relations, you then the anger comes that you don't get me and all
Yeah,
of that,
yeah.
right? So try and figure out which level are they coming from,
Hmm.
and can I meet them at that level. I think
Yeah.
that's quite useful. And something I see folks, and we also are training ourselves to get better, but doing a lot less of is, once you listen, then play it back,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? What we say is paraphrase, like, hey, I heard you say this,
Yeah.
and look for some acknowledgement that you're right or wrong.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, give them a chance to say, no,
Hmm.
no, that's not what I meant.
Hmm.
This is what I meant.
Exactly. Actually, you find that that question even makes them think a little more.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
synthesis is happening,
yeah.
which again can solve a lot of problems before they become big issues. I mean, in creative, a brief document is the holy grail of everything we do,
Correct.
right? And you'd be surprised by how few people can actually produce a good brief in any format. Like
Yeah.
whether I could be communicating that to my team, somebody could be communicating it to me. But finally, that is supposed to be the truth teller, so to
Mm,
speak.
mm.
But unless you know what the truth needs to be in some format, then how are you going to? And that's where I find so many times that I'm telling people to go out and bring in the information that you can then synthesize, right? Like go out and explore the world, go out, watch a film, attend a show, talk, just put yourself a little bit, I don't know, go do pottery, put yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone and bring that information back to then think, then process, because that becomes the source of your information to have a conversation, right? When I'm talking to you and you're telling me about an experience that is very important to you and you're being vulnerable about it, the way I relate to that is from my own truth. That's never going to change. But if my truth is not rich enough, then how am I going to ever be able to relate to you?
Yeah. No, we when we are even when we get briefs, like you said, like so many of our assignments, when we get a brief, there is this, I guess, a very natural tendency to jump in and say, yeah, I got it,
Yeah, and I'll do these four
and
things.
I'll do these
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And actually, sometimes we don't even say I'll do these things. We act like we've understood exactly what you want,
Yeah, yeah.
and then we will then go back to our room and then discuss about how we don't know what they want.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right? Because if I ask you, then you'll think I don't know the job.
Hmm, hmm,
But if I can ask a rich question,
hmm.
I can give an example and say, is this something similar to, is am I on the right track?
Yeah,
Is this what you're thinking? There's so much richness to that conversation,
yeah,
where if I were on the other side, I will also feel like, hey, they're trying to get there,
yeah,
and
yeah.
because of that they will get there.
And sometimes the richest question you can ask is why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Why do you want it done this way? Why
Yeah.
not that way? Why
Yeah.
is it important now? Why do I need to finish it today and not
Yeah.
tomorrow? Like the number of,
No,
opportunities.
yeah. If you go down the question route, like,
Yeah.
you can really save yourself a
Lot of pain. I mean, just
lot of
take it
pain.
from someone who's been in creative for 15 years. Asking questions is the best thing you can do for your own mental health to begin
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we shy away from it a lot
Yeah.
because it seems to be the one thing that will show that you don't know.
Yeah.
When actually you want to know more and you want to know the right things,
Yeah.
you know. And that comes back to what you said, like kind of figuring out that audience.
I was just going to say, earlier you said, I want to speak to this set of people, or this is why this is the room in which I'm going. And I think in smaller contexts or in corporate boardrooms and things like that, the audience is a lot clearer.
Hmm.
You probably have a pre established relationship
Yeah.
there as well. But today, I think, and I'm going to go back to the LinkedIn aspect, or as much as we really, really hate, some of the things that happen on that platform, the reason for that discomfort also is because we are realizing a lot of people are saying things without really thinking them through.
Hmm.
And now there's also a shiny new tool in their arsenal to be able to then do the writing also.
Yeah.
So it's almost as though you are hearing from somebody who's not a person,
Correct.
which is the discomfort of
Correct. And you
social
can
media.
sense it immediately.
Exactly. So many of us talk without knowing our audiences, right?
Yeah.
And it's also a process. You evolve with time and you begin to develop some
Yeah.
understanding. But there are people who do it really, really well. So, what is the difference between people who seem to have gotten it right and the rest of us who just don't?
I what's I feel, and we've been through this journey ourselves. What's common to those who don't get it right is that we are trying to cater to everyone,
Hmm, hmm,
right?
hmm.
And I feel like those who get it right are very clear on the niche that they want to talk to,
Hmm, hmm.
and they don't worry so much about alienating the others,
That I think.
right?
Hmm, hmm.
Because we go to a lot of shows, we go to events together, we watch. I mean, we've seen Nayab and her
Yeah.
poetry, we've seen Kanan Gill, we've seen Ayush Radha recently. I mean, we while we do comedy more than it seems, but we've also gone to dance performances, etc. They, over a period of time, when by the time they get so good you can't ignore them, they really know their audience,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like, if I look at, let's say, two probably similar comedians, if I look at a Sumukhi and if I look at Ayo, probably same age group,
Hmm, hmm,
um, young women of today, bold, confident, and
hmm.
you would think they'd cater to a very similar audience, or they may say similar things,
Yeah.
but they are very different,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And we noticed
We
that
notice
so
that, right?
significantly in Ayush Shraddha's performance, where it's actually a much older demographic
Yeah, yeah,
than late 80s, early 90s,
correct,
grew up with Doordarshan, is
correct.
really the audience that
Correct.
she's
Which you
catering
wouldn't
to.
expect from her, but I
Yeah.
think because she also has the mom and dad persona,
Or
and
maybe the persona was born because,
maybe because she has to
yeah,
cater to
yeah,
that. and she's very clear on that.
Yeah.
I've gone to Sumuki's show, and there's this very young Indian woman,
Okay.
single, trying to, in and out of relationships, struggling with dating apps, and there's a very clear demographic there, and the
Hmm.
audience loves it, and that's
Hmm.
the audience you see in the room.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there's a very different audience you see in Shraddha Jain's
Yeah.
room, right? And that neither of them is saying, oh, but then I'm losing out on the
Yeah. Yeah.
50,000 others.
Yeah. And for us, it's a lot harder because as you were saying that, I was also thinking, who's Kanan Gill's audience, right? Like, if I
Huh.
really kind of look at the room, I would not know.
Hmm.
And that's why it becomes a little harder for us to figure out who is our audience.
True,
And
true.
sometimes I feel like the only thing, and this is something that I've been trying to do with my own social media, is to just try and make the mistakes. Like,
Hmm.
there will always be things that, and I lose followers every time I post something, and that's telling me something, right? Like, as much
Yeah,
as it's painful
yeah,
to see that small number become even smaller, it's telling me something about the kind of people who are there, which is not to say I'm going to change my narrative for them. I may or may not, but at least the people who are there are seeing something of value there as well.
yeah. No, you have to experiment a bit. That is true, and I think you have to experiment in real life conversations also.
Oh, big
Whether,
time.
like you said, whether it's boardroom conversations or with senior management, you've got data points. You want to tell a story. You need to make that crystal clear. You really have to put yourself in that person's shoes and say, okay, they've given me these 15-20 minutes.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
see, I'm giving somebody that 30 second of real attention.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's just like you getting 15-20 minutes in a boardroom with somebody to make a
Absolutely. Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
right? Who is this audience, and what is it that they would like to hear
Hmm.
about this topic or this
Hmm.
situation
Hmm.
that we are talking about. One of the things in my corporate career, strangely, like, or it's a skill I realize I honed over time, was to write very crystal clear emails.
Hmm.
I took
Hmm.
my time over it,
Hmm.
to kind of reread it if it was going to somebody senior. And in my kind of banking roles, many times things would go wrong,
Hmm.
right? Operational errors, and you have to write to senior people to let them know what's happened, or there's a crisis you're trying to overmanage, or there's a client crisis which has kind of slipped into your domain, etc. And you try to think about, hey, I'm writing to somebody very senior who has the 30 seconds they're going to see urgent issue,
Hmm.
and then they're
Hmm.
going to start
Hmm.
reading this mail. And if I could lead with this has happened, but currently there is no financial impact, and then run with the story
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
as,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
because that's what,
Is
yeah,
important in a
then
banking
they can take a deep
context.
breath
Yeah.
and read the rest of yours,
Yeah.
your email, with a little bit more of little bit more patience,
Yeah, that's true. And
right?
suddenly I realized, as you were saying, that I have a lot of empathy now for people who say, oh, all of Monday was spent clearing my inbox, because I get it now. I
Yeah,
mean, for the
yeah.
longest time, I
Oh,
didn't.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
all your Monday is filled with what went wrong the last week, and your Friday is filled with what went wrong
Even
during
in
the
the
week. And
week.
yeah, so I think honing your communication skills. I mean, today, that's, are people paying less attention to it because they have tools? I'm wondering.
It's faster for sure, I feel. I mean, I was also thinking about that whole us versus them kind of thing that comes in when you're thinking about email communication,
Mm,
especially, right? Like, you feel like you are talking at someone, it's not a
mm,
to,
ah,
which is only becoming that much easier to do once you have a Gemini at your disposal to
yeah,
say, or you have those three standard responses at the bottom.
yeah,
Yes, I
yeah,
am working
yeah,
on it.
yeah,
Okay, noted. Like, God, help me if I ever receive one of those emails. Like, at least don't write. It's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I don't have to hear from you.
Why so many of the kind of mass mailers,
Yeah.
where people are trying to sell you something but trying to pretend that they're not selling you something?
I am one email away from telling somebody that they're reaching out to the wrong person.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
They're just
No,
cold
that
emailing the wrong.
subject line which tries to make you feel like you're in pain or you have
Yeah.
this problem, and I'm not your audience,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And you have to start figuring that out, in real life conversations also, that hey, this is not working. And then, like you said, look for all those non-verbal cues.
Mm-hmm.
When are they looking away? When is their mind seeming to wander? And if you actually look and pay attention, you can
Yeah, yeah. And it
figure it
is
out.
hurtful, right? I'm not going
Yeah,
to
yeah,
deny the fact that, like, you're talking and someone's tuning out. It's really difficult to, keep
yeah.
going, especially when you're practicing it. But that's the way it is. And somewhere I think some of these things also to me have started feeling like the last stand against some big corporate. Like
Huh.
I feel like I'm in saying this, I'm fighting the social media algorithm, which I probably am.
Huh.
But the point of that algorithm is always to connect you with
Yeah,
more people.
yeah, I think that's long. I mean,
That's
that bus
anyway
left
gone,
long
right?
ago.
So what
Yeah,
are
yeah,
you
yeah.
going to do about it? Like the
Correct,
algorithm is
correct,
not going to help you do it anymore.
correct, correct. But that doesn't mean that's what we first said. No, your intent.
Yeah.
Why are you on that platform, or why are you saying something? You want to connect, even if it's with just those five cousins. That's
Hmm.
fine.
Yeah.
Like, but just connect intentionally,
Yeah. So
and
true.
have some sense of who am I talking to through this platform, this email, this phone call.
Hmm.
Makes so much of difference, because we've lost that sense
Ability
of,
to dance with a partner.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
really. And
Mm.
because of that, the ability to even debate ideas.
Oh, oh, that's a whole
No.
can of worms.
Yeah, I'm just realizing that if you're always like, oh, I'll say something, then you'll respond, and we'll, quickly make sure
Agree with each other.
are we on the same page?
Y-
Like, just leave that page, man. Just talk
Get
to
away.
each other.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't have to be on the same page. You can debate an idea,
yeah,
and you can kind of, serve and volley. Like, you can go back and forth for a
yeah.
bit.
It's
Uh,
so interesting. I was just thinking that, if someone heard this episode and then went and had a very passionate conversation about something they believe in a coffee shop, I feel like I'd be very happy to just have
yeah, yeah,
heard
yeah,
that much. Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
all,
True. Yeah,
be have that sense of this is
I
what I
know.
believe in
Yeah,
with my limited information, no doubt. But at least for now, this is what I believe in.
yeah,
Change my mind.
yeah.
I wish we
No, so
could do
you
that.
heard that. So please have an intentional conversation and tell us about it in comments. That's all we ask.
Yes, please. We'd appreciate that so much.
But I think you're right. Like, something is missing, and it feels like, it's just the level of conversations, and the level of debate, and the level of being able to just say your point of view, and then have someone listen,
Yeah.
acknowledge, and respond rather than react. It's
So I think
really
essentially
dwindling.
what we are saying is the next time someone gives you feedback, hey, you need to improve your communication, maybe follow that up with saying what I'm hearing you say is,
Yeah, yeah. And ask a couple of questions.
yeah, hey, where did you experience that?
Yeah,
What about it?
correct. But was there one thing that I did well?
Yeah, and I should be doing more of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, questions are very powerful. I think we have a whole episode on that someday. Or maybe we already did. I don't
Or maybe every episode is that.
know.
Yeah.
So that's it, folks. Please do, think about a lot of what you put out there. And you may say, oh, but I'm not on social media, but I'm sure you're in at least 20 WhatsApp groups. So are you communicating with intent? Are you communicating to create a connection, to understand the other person, and then to respond to whatever they may ask or need or say? I what is what you're putting out there original thought, an idea, something to trigger more ideas. There's so much you can do today. I mean, there's so many tools at our disposal, but we're just diluting what we say and how we say it. So, I mean, that's all we ask.
Yeah. Or in fact, I'd go so far as to say just for one day, say nothing,
Yeah,
right?
that would
Like
be
read
great.
all the questions, process all of them. They're not running away from you. You
Mm,
will get back to them when it matters. I think
yeah,
just for one day, we can all say
yeah.
nothing.
One day Vipassana,
One day we pass.
sponsored
Like,
by
what a
Small
way to
Talk.
end an episode on communication, right? Say nothing.
So, on to our segment that we call Read, Watch, Listen. And I just realized that today, when you pick up any, author or topic, the same thing you could read, watch, or listen. Like, it doesn't have to be one of the three. So, one such is Zarna Garg. You can read her memoir, you can watch her special on OTT, you can listen to her family podcast, you can do all three. But this book is something that she put out recently, and I picked it up saying, okay, fine, I know her life journey. She's been talking about it. She was a stay at home mom for many years. And then, in her 40s, she took up stand up comedy, and is really, really putting in the work, and working with big names, doing wonderful stuff, creating some real family content. But this book was a gut punch, I must say. It starts with, her early life in Mumbai, her childhood, and really a childhood you would not wish upon any child, right? The kind of experiences she's gone through that led her to leave the country at a very young age. She was homeless for some time, really finding her bearings in this country and in the US, and then to from all of that to emerge to be the person she is today. This is an inspirational story of an inspirational woman, and hats off to everyone around her today, especially her children and her partner. The way they rally around her, support her, and way together as a family unit, they've created success, and more power to them. But I think her early life and her journey is something that we all must read to just understand that, one, you never know what someone has been through when you meet them today, and there's so much that you must allow for in that, and two, that what sheer hard work and determination and hustle can get you to. Yeah, so pick this up for just that.
So, my recommendation today is a book called On Writing by Stephen King. Now, here's the thing, you'll either read this book or you won't. And me recommending it is not going to change nothing about that. Right? But if you do read it, you might just end up discovering a bit of a genie in a bottle. And this is really the book that's making me think a lot more about slowing down, about stopping, about synthesizing all the information that we are consuming in such a hurry. Because we are consuming a lot. I think the human mind on average already thinks 80,000 thoughts on any given day, and we are probably thinking twice that, or we're at least trying to attempt to think twice that. But at what point have we slowed down and we paid attention to one thread of thought? And where has that taken us? I would just rename this book On Communication, and it would still be, equally appropriate. So if you are thinking about what am I saying to the world, do I want to be saying the things I'm saying? If that seed of thought has been born in your mind, then I highly, highly recommend that you give this book a read.
I must borrow that now.
Yes.
So that's it, folks. See you next time. Bye.